It's 6 o'clock in the evening in Germany, 5 in the UK. My name is Thomas Graf. I work for eFellowsNet since the late 90s. I consider myself to be an MBA expert, and I welcome everyone to this webinar on the MBA and MBA options. As you have noticed, we will record that webinar and we will publish it most likely on our website so that those people who haven't been able to attend can watch it later on. And today we want to discuss, clarify your questions, discuss an important topic about the MBA. That basically means what options do I have, particularly in times of pandemics, and what's the best option for me. And for this topic, I invited an absolute expert in that field. I know him for many, many years. He has been attending our MBA days many times. So please give a silent welcome, a digital welcome to Chris Healy from Alliance Manchester Business School. He's the head of marketing and recruiting. Hello, Chris. Can you hear me?
Hi, good afternoon, good evening, Thomas. Thank you very much for that introduction.
Is this the main classroom of your MBA class behind you?
So this is the photo of our new building. So we opened it in 2018. We opened it. So spent about £100 million on a new campus in Manchester.
Oh my God!
So
nice.
So it's nice to show it off on a Zoom virtual background when people can't necessarily fly in and visit.
Perfect. Before we start, let me just brief everyone. You are allowed, you are welcome, you are invited to ask questions in the chat. I received many questions in advance already that mainly have to do with your decision making. What's the best MBA and what shall I do to get in and all of that? But you are free, you are invited to use the next 58 minutes to pose your questions, whatever they are, in the chat, and I will address them occasionally, but I will definitely address all of them. But as a start, I would say, Chris, now that we are here, I mentioned already, MBA, studying an MBA doesn't mean that MBA is the same as an MBA. We have many, many different options, right? Different forms, face-to-face MBA programs, part-time programs, executive programs, online programs, whatever. Could you please provide us in general with a brief overview on these MBA study options that we have?
Yeah, of course, Thomas, more than happy to do that. So Thomas said he'd been working since the late 90s at eFellows. It's nice to hear someone who's been working in the industry longer than me. So that's made me feel pretty good hearing that. So I started in the industry in 2006. So about 15 years I've been in business education, and that brings us, I guess, to what the MBA options were back when I started. And maybe I'll go through them and then let you know of what the MBA options look like now. Okay. 2021 and beyond. Now, over 100 years ago, of course, Harvard Business School invented the Masters of Business Administration. It's grown globally since then. The first two schools to open in the UK were London Business School, Manchester Business School back in 1965. So we've had MBA programs for a number of years. And the full-time MBA, it's an excellent qualification. It's been there for over 100 years because it is an excellent qualification. It's still relevant today. I often hear or read articles, or sometimes you go to a conference and someone's trying to say, the death of the full-time MBA, and there's not much substance to such claims. The top business schools in the world will continue to offer full-time MBA programs, for the foreseeable future. We're no different at Alliance Manchester Business School. It's a great way of, how would you say, maybe completely switching careers. Often, I've just had lunch this afternoon with some full-time students, and I was speaking to two British students one student from Colombia and one student from Spain, and they all had something in common, and they were looking to change industry, change function, and also change location. So in terms of the Spanish and the Colombian person, they wanted to work in the UK, whereas the two British people are looking for maybe to gain more of a global experience after they graduate. So a full-time MBA can really help you on the way of making what the industry calls a triple jump.
A triple jump.
The triple jump, yes. And what I would say is often, not often, but sometimes I am asked questions from people who are looking at, part-time or executive MBAs, and they say they want to do that triple jump. And I'm always cautious by advising someone to do a professional MBA program if they're looking to make 3 specific changes. It's not to say it can't happen, because absolutely it can, but you see it every day on full-time MBA programs. People changing the industry, the function, and where they live. But also something I think that's worth recognizing is full-time MBA applications are stagnating, are going down, and there has been a trend of this in the past few years. And I think one of the reasons for that is because of the vast array of options available in the professional MBA landscape. The last face-to-face event that I did, well, actually, no, this story is out of date because I did a face-to-face event in London last week. But before last week, the last face-to-face event I had done was in California in January 2020, and I said in a conference there, there's never been a better time for a professional to embark on an MBA program. And when I say professional, I mean someone who wants to continue to work while studying for an MBA. Of course, so little did I know what was going to come upon all our lives a couple of short months after that. But the thing is that when I said that comment, 100% I meant it. But I think the last 18 months has shown, as A, shown I was right, or B, as even, has further emphasized that point.
Yeah. Chris, can you, before you move on, can you provide us with an overview on the different study options that an MBA program offers, or business school offers?
So yeah, of course. So we've gone there we've spoken about the full-time MBA, and then when you look at the professional MBA options, you have executive MBAs, you have part-time MBAs, you have blended MBAs, you have modular MBAs, modular / distance MBAs, and then you also have 100% online MBAs, and there's been significant growth in the 100% online MBA market as well.
So is it fair to separate the portfolio of MBA programs into 2 categories? One is a full-time, a residential period, face-to-face program, and the other category is what I call part-time, something you can study beside your job. And this second category can be subcategorized into executive MBA, online MBA, blended MBA, modular MBA. Would you agree on that? Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. Because again, you'll be able to relate with this, Thomas. I think over the years, there's been, I would class it, an old school level of thought that you've got a full-time MBA market there, an executive MBA market there. The executive MBA market is different to a part-time MBA market. The part-time MBA market is different to the distance MBA market. And I've been saying for a number of years, that's simply not true. It's too much of an old school way of thinking.
Okay.
Because the thing that they have in common, and you've said the word, they all want to study part-time. Now, the terminology I've been using in recent years is the professional MBA market. But yeah, absolutely, that means people want to study part-time, and there's a wealth of options and different ways of doing that. There's going to be, the right program is there for everyone, but everyone does not need to pick the exact same study format. An executive MBA will work for some people who are on this Zoom. A 100% online MBA will work for some people. A more blended approach will work for some people. So that's why I have been saying there's never been a better time to study for an MBA in a part-time format.
Now, you mentioned already the last 2 years that full-time MBAs are stagnating in terms of number of applications, and we all experienced the pandemics. Questions that I receive over and over again is, does it make sense these days in COVID years or post-COVID years to start and consider a full-time MBA, or wouldn't it make more sense to consider one of the many professional MBA options, the part-time MBA options? What would you say from your experience?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of things I would look at there. The first, which we've already sort of touched on, what is it that you want from the MBA?
Okay.
A lot of people who go and do part-time professional MBA programs, they already have a number of years of experience. Although interestingly, we are seeing now, and this is not in Manchester, this is across the industry, you're seeing now younger applicants, people whose CVs I would have looked at 5 or 10 years ago, and I would have said, this person is a full-time MBA candidate. Okay. Now they're looking at different part-time options. So generally, people who do those part-time programs do have more years of experience, but as I said, you are seeing younger applicants. But also, the key thing about part-time MBA candidates is they're often in an industry that they like. Sometimes even, often also in a company, but certainly an industry, and they think there's a way to progress upwards. So whether that's in the automotive industry, whether that's in the pharmaceutical, whether it's getting a bigger promotion within their pharmaceutical company, or whether it's going to a competitor, they see what an MBA could potentially do for them. And as I said, on the full-time program, if someone's in pharmaceutical, generally speaking, not always, but generally speaking, they're looking to get out of that industry for whatever reason. So I would look firstly, what is it that you want to achieve? If you think about, funding is another thing to consider. Full-time MBA programs, of course, it's a big opportunity cost. You give up your job, you've got no income, you're paying a significant amount of fees, etc. Then with part-time MBA options, there are opportunities sometimes to gain sponsorship from your organization. Right. And again, if you're fortunate to have sponsorship, then probably you're going to look more at a part-time option.
You mentioned that with a full-time student, the majority of full-time MBA students aim at changing their industry. So basically doing a career shift, right? What would be the options for a part-time now in the widest sense, a professional MBA student? What would be his or her motivation to do an MBA, if not changing the industry and achieving a career shift?
Yeah, so sometimes people do want that career shift, career switch. And as I said, it does happen. I'm always reluctant to just say, yes, do a part-time MBA or do an executive MBA or do an online MBA and you will get that career switch. I'm always reluctant on that, just because it doesn't always happen like that.
Yeah, you cannot.
What the commonality, if you will, from these types of candidates is career progression. That's the key thing. They see an option. They could be middle management, they could be senior management, they could be aspiring to get to a management level, and these are the people that they see. The part-time MBA, executive MBA, distance MBA is a way for me to progress and gain more senior roles
and develop and shape my career. Again, let me come back to just for one more minute on this topic of pandemics. I mean, obviously you can speak, you know the most about your own business school. So please provide us, now that we have you with us, please provide us with a little insight on how Alliance Manchester Business School organizes its full-time MBA these days. Let's say I start a full-time MBA this month or next month, so fall 2021. How is it organized given the pandemics, the restrictions? Is it really a full-time program, or is it rather a part-time program with some residential periods?
Yeah, so I'm pleased to say that our full-time MBA started 2 weeks ago, and we're back to face-to-face now. It is exactly what it, well, actually no, I won't say the word exactly. It is almost exactly like what the program looked like 2 years ago. The only reason I hesitated and said I don't want to say the word purely exactly, and why I said almost, is because our program has always been built by having live consultancy projects. So our students on a full-time MBA work with 3 live clients. Now, those clients generally would come on campus, or they'd want our students to go to their offices. And now it's a bit of a mix and match. Some people, you know, for example, American Express is one of our project clients.
Right.
They don't have their staff in their offices in London and Brighton at this moment in time. So of course they're not going to be getting 5 MBA students from Manchester to the office there. So that's the only change, and that's a temporary change, I think, because, and it's dependent on how the external labour market react or continue to develop with regards to the pandemic and the shift to, you know, working from home, who's coming back to the office. So I'm sure that we'll see that develop and change over the next few months as well.
Oh, yeah.
That's the only reason I hesitated, because of our external companies that we have on the MBA. If our MBA was a traditional full-time MBA where you were just in the classroom 100% of the time, it'd be exactly the same.
All right.
We pride ourselves on taking students out to the classroom as well.
Since you just mentioned your cooperation with American Express, do your full-time MBA students need to find their employer themselves and apply for this? Or do the employers, because they are partners maybe of your business school, do they select their students and find them and approach them even?
So that question was about how you secure your job roles and internships, wasn't it?
Yeah, during your MBA. I understood you that your MBA offers, every full-time MBA student runs through consultancy projects during the program. So you have an academic education and you have a practical education. And my question is, how do the full-time MBA students get in contact with this employer?
Sorry, yes. Okay, fully understood. Thanks, Thomas. So the way we do that is we always have a list of clients, and we have we have more clients than we have students.
Okay.
So we make sure, so what we say to students is all groups of students are guaranteed a client, but not all clients are guaranteed a group of students. And we use that to our advantage, because if you're a company who wants to have a group of 4, 5, 6 MBAs working on a piece of consultancy work for you, it's in your interest to make your briefs attractive. It's in your interest to make the available staff and that they are dedicated, and they embrace the idea of working with some of our MBAs. So what happens is you as a group pick your top 3 companies. So let's say our international business consultancy, you pick your top 3 companies and you pitch to those companies.
Okay.
And you know, there's all sorts of different intricacies. How, you know, you might be pitching for your 3rd choice on a Monday morning. They offer you the project on a Tuesday morning. They want an answer by Wednesday morning. But your 1st and 2nd choice pitch is not until Friday morning and afternoon.
Hard decision.
Choice on a Wednesday. If you do, therefore you remove from number 1 and 2. If you say no to number 3 and you go and do pitch number 1 and 2 on Friday and you get one of them, great news. If on the other hand you are not successful with 1 and 2, you're going back to that list because number 3 is long gone. Someone else has picked number 3. You might be picking number 20th on your list because you made a bad decision on Wednesday morning.
I see. Okay, Chris. So let me summarize for the moment. We provided an overview on different study options. We talked about the Corona situation these days. We talked about specifically the Manchester full-time MBA. Let's come to the second question that I have in this slide here. What's the best option for me? You mentioned already that there is not one best option. It depends on the person. It's an individual question, is whether a full-time MBA or a blended MBA or executive MBA is the best option. But is there something, some kind of rule of thumb or some kind of tips or some kind of toolkits, some guidelines that you could give to our audience, how they can find out what's their specific individual best option? What are the questions to ask? What's the first question to ask? And what's the 5th question to ask to find out what's the best study option for me?
So it's a very good question, and the only reason I'm sort of smiling is because I know what I'm going to say, and I don't know how many colleagues in the industry always agree with this train of thought, but I very much believe in it. I think, and so I'll start with the word maybe instinct.
Okay.
Instinctively, you should know, in my opinion, you should know whether you want to do a full-time program or want to do a part-time MBA. Or another way of saying it, you should know instinctively whether you can commit to a full-time program or not. Something I've said time and time again is most people on professional MBA programs, part-time executive MBAs, if they had a choice, or in a perfect world, they would choose to do a full-time MBA. Mm-hmm. Reality is, it's not a perfect world. Not everything is simply, oh yes, I'm going to do that. You've got so many factors. You might be in a very highly paid job. What a risk that would be to quit that job to go for a full-time program. You might have fallen in love. You know, you might not want to. You might not want to leave your partner. These things, you instinctively know. Can you commit? Yes or no to a full-time MBA? If the answer is no, no problem at all, because of the wealth of alternative options that were not there 15, 20, 25 years ago. Those wealth of options are there. And if you can commit and think, yeah, I can invest in this, I can commit my time in this, I can potentially move country, etc., then great. there's plenty of full-time MBA options. So I'm gonna stick to the word instinct or instinctively. In my opinion, you should know between full-time and part-time.
Right. I fully understand this, and I think indeed this key decision between a full-time or a part-time program could be answered instinctively. What makes the decision maybe a bit more difficult is once I decided to do a part-time MBA, as you just mentioned, it's another bunch of options that I have. So what am I going to do now?
Yeah, so that's when I think, you know, I'll sort of take each one very quickly in turn.
Okay, yeah, perfect.
Traditional executive MBA. So that qualification has been around many, many years. The majority of the top elite business schools have an executive MBA. Things to consider. 18 to 24 months is what they tend to take to complete. And you need to commit about 70 to 90 days of face-to-face contact. If you can be away from the office for that amount of time, if you can be away from your family for that amount of time, I encourage people to strongly consider an executive MBA. The other thing is the fees. So many executive MBAs can go up to, you know, $200,000. So there's a significant fee on an executive MBA. So if you can do the face-to-face commitment, and if you've got the financial resources, absolutely a great sort of program to consider. Then you go for, you know, part-time or evening MBA programs. You know, I now personally look at them as almost like the dinosaur MBA programs in business education. And the reason I say that is because they're so localized. So whether you do an evening MBA in Manchester, whether you do an evening MBA in Frankfurt, whether you do one in LA, in Lagos, it doesn't matter, because you're going to be based in that city, and the people around you are also going to be based in that city. No one's flying from Munich to Manchester or flying from New York to LA to do an evening MBA. No. It's a very localized program. And now in such a globalized world and people wanting to have a global network, they're sort of put off by it. So it is an option, but you do that because you purely want a local experience. And if it's a local experience you want, then again, that's a good option to look at. If you're looking at anything wider, I'm not sure I would advise that. Then you've got what I class as, you know, traditional distance MBAs, or maybe modular MBAs, where it's predominantly online, but there's about 10 to 14 days of face-to-face contact. So as an example, a great program, Imperial College London launched that type of program, I think about 4 years ago. One of our colleagues in the US that we do some work with, the Kelly School of Business in Indiana, have again that type of program. You come for maybe 5 days at the start, 5 days at the end of the program. So again, that works because you've got a nice balance between online and face-to-face. And then you've got 100% online MBAs. You know, just before the pandemic, I remember reading there was something like 85 100% online MBAs. So that was in 2017. There was something like 85 online MBAs in the
worldwide.
Just in the US. But by 2020, January 2020, there were 300 online MBAs in the US, and that was before the pandemic. So who knows what the number is now? So again, you know, great option if you just want purely online. The disadvantages is you do miss out on face-to-face contact. You know, it's that balance between that 80, 90 days of contact on an executive MBA, that zero amount of days contact on a 100% online MBA. The way that we've done it in Manchester is we feel we sit in the middle. So we've got about 30 to 35 days of contact time. And that means, you know, we think that's a good amount of balance between time away from the office, time away from the family, and also there's still enough on the online component blended with the face-to-face.
You mean the residential times within 2 years or 3 years of?
Sorry, yeah. So within the 2-year period, you'd be coming 3 times a year to Manchester, and in that, you know, it's for a total of between 30 to 35 days, and they're usually in, you know, 4 to 5 to 6 day blocks.
I see. So you even may have time to watch some soccer games there from Manchester United, City, whatever you like.
Do you know what? But just not to go off on too much of a tangent, but that was a change we made to the program about 3 years ago. Our students were saying, yeah, the program's great, the intensity of these classes are great, being with students from around the world is great, but we're working like, you know, 12 a.m. in the evening. It's too intense. So what we've done now is we've ensured, in a 6-day period, there's 2 days of those 6 days where there's no academic work. So it's all about, you know, networking or exploring,
of course, networking,
going to the football.
But thanks a lot. So let me summarize again. We provided an overview on all the different options that the fellows have. Full-time MBA programs, we have executive MBA programs, we have evening part-time MBA programs, we have modular MBA part-time programs, and we even have 100% online MBA programs. And you gave us, and that's great, you gave us an overview on the advantages or disadvantages, and so that everyone can consider and find his or her program that is the best that works. Now I received a question from Anne-Christine. She says, hello, is the MBA suited for all academic disciplines? In my case, architecture. There are some real estate, management, education seminars in Germany, if I understand correctly, Anne-Christine. But she's interested if people with an architecture background are welcome in an MBA as well, and if it makes sense, of course.
Yeah, so there's, you know, people will see or will have noticed over the last few years, there's been a growth in specialized MBAs, which is strange to one extent, because when Harvard invented the qualification, it was a general management qualification.
Exactly. Yeah.
And when you look at the top business schools in the world now, they still consider it first and foremost a general management qualification.
Right.
That's exactly how we look at it. We've never wanted, and I guess this is also true for those other top schools, so this story can be replicated. We've never wanted to be known as a specialist business school. Come to Manchester if you're interested in banking. That's the #1 school to go to. No, yeah, of course we want people from finance and banking. Of course we do. In fact, it's one of our top 3 most popular sectors of where people go to after the MBA. But we pride ourselves on having a very diverse cohort. So we want people from a wide range of industries. We want people who can stand out. You know, the last conversation I had with a candidate was last week, and they came from a HR background. And again, HR is not your typical MBA background. No one's going to walk into an MBA classroom in Boston or London or Frankfurt and see a load of HR professionals. It just isn't going to happen. However, when you are, let's say, a HR professional or an architect what you can do there, you use it to your advantage, because that means you are different to a lot of the people in the classroom. Yeah. So that means when an Amazon or an American Express are potentially looking to hire, they're thinking, okay, we've got someone here who's got a different skill set. We've got 10 people who look like your typical engineers in this hand, but we've got someone different here. That interests recruiters. And then I think the other thing that I would say is to speak with people in your specific industry. Speak with those people who have got very senior roles, who might be 15 years ahead of you in their career. And you know, how is the MBA valued in the industry?
Right.
And of course, when we think about the MBA qualification, it is, you know, we try to, you know, develop global leaders who can work across industries. So it's not a case that you know, you have to come from one specific one. So from my perspective, and I would say for many of my colleagues from other business schools around the world, I think they would welcome seeing people with different backgrounds. It's refreshing to see people with different backgrounds. You know, you don't want to see the same application time and time again. We all want accountants in the room, but what we don't want a class full of accountants.
From my own experience, Christina, I can say that good international business schools, top business schools, really look for diversity. They look for a diverse class. And people like me, who studied originally history and literature, humanities, or people like you with architecture, are interesting for business schools, definitely. Now, here's another question related to that. Ozan asked, what about graduates from law? Does an MBA make sense for a lawyer, especially in the light of being also able to attend an LLM, a Master of Laws, instead?
Yeah, so the two sectors that I think I pick out more than any from the past 15 years of, you know, people I'd never seen, or very rarely would I see them doing an MBA 10, 15 years ago, are those individuals with a clinical background and a legal background. You know, of course, you know, when I did start in the industry, it happened every now and then. But those individuals with a clinical and legal background now, we are seeing much, much more regularly. And I think one of the reasons for that is perhaps they are needing to have more maybe commercial acumen, have more of those general management skills, and that their employers or the industry no longer want to just have them as specialists. They see the opportunities to have people, they have the specialization, but they like the idea of them also, you know, almost turning into generalists, if you will, and there's a place for them in the industry. And of course, the place for those people is more of a senior or high level role. So on one hand, the answer is almost the same as what I mentioned to the architect, to the HR professional, with the only caveat is the two examples I use time and time again now are legal and clinical, because I am seeing much, much more over the last 5 years without a doubt.
Building on that, I personally made the experience that many MBA students have their expertise, they have their specialized knowledge in one specific discipline. It could be architecture, it could be law, it could be business, it could be finance, but it could be engineering, or in my case, humanities. But with an MBA, they just add, let's say horizontally, general management knowledge. And with these two educations, a specialized education in one area, plus the general management education on top of that, they distinguish from other architects or from other lawyers or from other HR managers. And I think that's one of the flavors, one of the many flavors that an MBA can provide you with. Okay. Is there any other question from you, so far? You fellows, please. Otherwise, I have some other questions here on my list received yesterday. Just place it in the chat. One question referred to accreditation. Now, there are 3 internationally accredited accreditations. One is called the ASCSB, which comes originally from the US. Second one is AQUIS, which is a Euro-based accreditation. Third one is AMBA, Association of MBAs. For everyone who doesn't know that, accreditation agencies are private firms. They make money by conducting a due diligence. They screen business schools according to certain criteria, international management education standards, for instance. And if the business school fulfills these criteria, for example, 100% English language, a certain amount of case studies, or a certain publication behavior and activity of professors in top journals, then the respective business school receives the accreditation like ASCSB or 111, AQUIS, ASCSB, and AMBA, or not. Now the question is, how much emphasis should I place on just the fact that a business school has one of these 3 accreditations or not? Is this something that is it more a marketing gag? Is it something that I completely ignore as an MBA student? Or is it something that tells me, yeah, that's a great school?
So my thoughts on that is, having personally gone through those accreditation processes, and they come every few years to make sure that the program is still of a high quality. The amount of rigor that they put into it, they really are trying to test the quality of an MBA program, its academics, its students, its admissions practices, the quality of the school as a whole. So it truly is a stamp of approval. It does mean something, There's a stat I read a couple of years ago about only 1% of business schools have triple accreditation. So it's not easy. It's not easy to get it. I don't think it's necessarily the be all and end all. But what I would say is it does give that stamp. And what I would then go on to say is, although it's 1%, that 1% is still a large number as a whole number. So it's not like 1% means 17 business schools. No, 1%. I mean, I don't know exactly what it means, but it could mean like 150 schools, 200 schools. Right. So the point is, there's still a big number to choose from. So if you go, okay, that gives a stamp of approval, and I can just say, I'm going to shortlist programs who already are triple accredited. You're still going to have a big list. You still need to do more work. It's not going to be a case of, right, I'm going to pick a triple accredited school. There's only 3 to choose. That's not going to be the case. It's going to be a big list, but it's a way of starting.
Right. I can personally add that I teach innovation management at the University of Kempten in Germany, and we ran through the EPA accreditation process 2 years ago. EPA belongs to AQUIS, and as a lecturer, I was interviewed by the team of the agency, and I received some kind of insight into that process from the perspective of a professor. And I can say that this is quite a rigorous process. And if a business school successfully went through this process and finally received that stamp of quality, it is no guarantee that it's the best school for you. It could be that it's the worst school for you because you don't feel comfortable, or because the school is in the mountains and you want to be in a big city, or vice versa. However, it's a guarantee that this school provides you with minimum quality, and this minimum quality is on a high level already regarding international management education standards. So I personally can recommend everyone to at least consider business schools with at least one, if not two or three, of these international accreditations. And if you don't consider such a school, my personal Thomas Graf opinion is, or recommendation is, just make sure that you have a good reason to choose another one. Of course, there can be reasons to choose another one. If your friend or your brother did the MBA there, it's next door, and you know that this is quality and this is exactly what you want, you don't need an international accreditation. What I recommend you take it serious, take into account while you're in the search process, take into account schools with ASCSB, AQUIS, or AMBA accreditation science. All right. I have another question here regarding financing an MBA. Is there another question from you so far? Ozan and Christine, I hope we answered your questions. Yes, perfect. Yes. Yeah, the financing question, I mean, it's a question that people who are in the business like you, like me, we of course, we hear every year. Why do we hear it every year? Because it's an important question. Because an MBA is investment, and there's always a question regarding scholarships. What does Alliance Manchester Business School, what kind of scholarships do you grant? We know about need-based scholarships versus merit-based scholarships. Could you just provide us with an overview on your culture, let me call it culture, to support ambitious people who may have the capability for an MBA, but not, at least not the 100% resources, 100% of the resources financially to do an MBA?
Yeah, of course. So on our full-time MBA, we have a history of offering a number of scholarships to candidates. They range from 10% to 50%, so 50% of the fees on the full-time MBA. They are based on merit, not necessarily need. And you know, I think we get it right most years. You know, I see the diversity, not just in terms of nationalities, but more, you know, also in terms of the industries. You know, maybe giving that person who might have, you know, like I said, maybe a HR background, so may not necessarily come with a huge salary pre-MBA. So you try to give those people help, because you know that they can add, add to the class. Then on the professional MBA program, we have maybe a different. I think you said the word culture. I think a few moments ago, Thomas. And we have a different sort of culture on our professional MBAs, where we don't offer scholarships. Now, the reason we don't offer scholarships on that program is our global MBA is actually one of the biggest professional MBA programs in the world. You know, we've got our global campuses in Dubai, Hong Kong, Singapore, Shanghai, Sao Paulo. So we recruit every year about 700 professionals. So what we've done with our business model there is because we've got such a big number, we've been able to keep the price relatively low. So if you looked, let's just say you took, well, who are the best top 50 business schools in the world? We're somewhere in the middle. And you looked at those fees for the professional MBA programs, even though I said we're somewhere in the middle in terms of a ranking per se, we'd be towards the lower end in terms of a fee on our professional MBA programs. Now that's because of our business model of the way our program is delivered. Now, of course, if we had a small executive MBA where we could only recruit 45 students and they needed to be on campus, you know, 70, 80, 90 days of the year, well, we'd be charging probably like £100,000 or €100,000 per student with that model. but our model is different because of that 30 to 35 days. So we've been able to keep that fee relatively low. And that's the reason we don't have the culture of scholarships on that program.
You mentioned merit-based scholarships, and to what extent or degree the respective person would add value to the, or contribute to the success of the class. How do you measure merit in that?
Yeah,
context?
so it could be in a number of ways. I think professional experience is the key one that we look for with our students. You know, what impact have they had in their organization? What impact have they had in their industry? You know, great. You know, obviously good to have a good academic background, to have a good GMAT, etc. But they do always fall second to professional experience in our eyes. And maybe we are slightly unique there, especially in comparison to, say, US schools, because your academic and GMAT score will probably trump everything in the US. But for us, because it's such a practical full-time MBA, where we take you outside of the classroom so much with those 3 clients, your professional experience really counts and really matters for us. So that would be number 1. But yeah, there is number 2, 3, 4, 5, which is your GMAT, your academic background, how you've done in your interview, your references, your essays. But I do not hesitate for 1 second in saying what number 1 is, which is your professional background.
What about the career progression of German graduates at your business school? Do they go back to Germany, or? Yeah.
Well, I'll say it because it's factually true. I was looking at our German students on our full-time MBA, who we've had over the past few years, and every single one of them have received a scholarship of 50% on our full-time MBA. Now, now there's a number of reasons there. So 1, obviously the quality of applications are very good. 2, you know, we can see with our data history, you go, you know, when we tend to recruit German students on our full-time MBA, they go on to have extremely successful careers. So it's also in our benefit to say, do you know what? Yeah, we'll offer you a 50% scholarship because you'll be great in class. Our students will like you, but also because you're going to go on, projected you're going to have a great career. That's going to look good for us. And then on our professional MBA program, as I said, we don't have scholarships, but we do have a higher number of German students undertaking our professional MBA programs as opposed to our full-time. And, you know, you could attribute that to, you know, how full-time MBAs have or were becoming, you know, less attractive to some candidates, and the growth in the amount of professional MBA options, which is what we, you know, began the session speaking about.
Matthias has a question. Considering the high costs and the great variety of schools, is it really necessary to spend excessive amounts, or do smaller, cheaper programs also provide worthwhile benefits? Do you have a recommendation or a guideline, if possible, how much at least to spend to get into a program of good quality? For instance, a modular MBA.
No,
in a modular MBA.
It's again. I'm laughing because I try to be objective in these sessions and give a full overview of, you know, different schools, etc. I'm also very tempted to say to, I think it's Matthias, isn't it, to say, look at our part-time MBA, £30,000. If you compare that to other programs, it's such a lower fee. Full-time MBA programs, again, of course, I can't guarantee anything like this on a Zoom without meeting someone, but the historical trends show our German full-time MBA applicants have been receiving 50% scholarships. So I would argue and say there's a lot of German professionals on both our full-time and global MBA who are not paying huge amounts of fees. So I'm tempted to say us and to look at it a different way where
it's fair. Say it.
Move all the costs and you start looking at things like, you know, MOOCs and etc. Again, you know, you've got to think what you want and what either your current employers or potential future employers, will they place value on that, or will they place more value on an accredited MBA program from a business school that has a global reputation? That's a question that I think always goes down to the individual. You know, think about another way of looking at it is this: the academic content in an MBA. You know, you can find it on your phone. You can find it on your phone. It's free. But also, an MBA is more than just the academic content. It's about the people that you meet. You know, the word I hear time and time again, unprompted from students. What does the MBA give you? The word is confidence. And when I say confidence, I don't mean by giving a PowerPoint presentation in front of 500 people. That's not what I mean. What I mean is the confidence to be in a meeting with 4 senior managers, of which they've all got finance backgrounds and you don't. And you can articulate a financial strategy in that room with those 4 people who are more senior than you, even though you don't have a financial background like them, because you were on a top MBA program and they got you to think in such a strategic way. And that's not something that you can just get out of the textbook. That is something you get by going to a top business school in the US, by going to a top business school in Germany, by going to a top business school in the UK.
Right. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And Christine comes back to the beginning of our webinar today when you mentioned that every MBA student, at least a full-time MBA student, conducts consultancy projects with 3 employers. So, and Christine, it's not half theory, half working on a project. It's just 3. It's a 1-year program, right? The full-time MBA is a 1-year program.
So our full-time MBA has traditionally been 18 months.
18 months.
And about 5 years ago, 4 years maybe, we introduced the option of completing it in 15 and 12 months.
Okay. So 3 options, and you have three practical periods with 3 different employers within these study times, right? Yeah.
So even whether you do the 12, 15, or 18, you still have 3 clients.
Right.
You know, I'm a believer that the 15 and 18 month. Well, there's a reason it's most popular, because it also has an internship. And for those people who are looking to go down a structured MBA hiring path. So I mentioned American Express earlier. I look at, say, Amazon. They're our biggest clients at the moment. If you want to go through a structured MBA hiring path, then you should probably do an internship. And you can do an internship on the 15 and the 18. 12 months, you can't do an internship. But the 3 consultancy projects are on both, or on all 3, the 12,
and
15,
all 3
and 18.
of them. Right.
Yeah.
And Christine writes, it was mentioned that one could choose from a list. What is the process of employers? What is the process of being matched with a company on a project? Typical application process. What's the typical application process? Once a company is found, do you find a project together with a company, or are the topics or projects set? Are they given?
So the company writes a brief, and it goes to the whole class, or the companies write briefs, and then your group, of which is 4, 5, or 6 students, you pick your top 3. So you're competing against your fellow students.
Right.
So let's say there's an automotive company, let's say BMW, we do a lot of work with them. If you're in a group and no one's got automotive experience, but you know the other groups have got people from Bentley, another group someone from Rolls-Royce, another group someone from Audi, are you going to beat those groups? If you do, again, good luck to you, but you've got to be realistic. If you've got no automotive experience, are you going to beat them to gain BMW?
Right.
So it's a competitive process that you have to bid on, that you have to pitch, but you have to be, you know, I think you have to be strategic and realistic as well in how you pick your three.
Do you advise your students how to pitch?
We certainly work with them on the pitch. We give them all general advice in terms of picking the three. Yeah, you might hear the advice that I've said. You know, sometimes you can have someone. I remember one of our former class presidents. He came to us because he wanted to get into finance and banking, and he was adamant he wanted financial services organizations for his consultancy project, but no one else in the group cared for that sector. And they're like, HSBC, we don't care. We don't want to do anything with them. We're looking at, you know, tech, automotive, FMCG, etc., etc. So, you know, there's an element of negotiations, diplomacy involved as well.
Well, that was intense. It's 7 o'clock. We are basically at the end of this session. Is there any final question on your side, dear e-fellows? How can we reach you, Chris? Can the guys connect with you at LinkedIn?
Yeah, by all means, they can put me on LinkedIn. I'll also type in my email address here.
Oh, that's great.
If anyone wants to take it down, they want to drop me an email, I'll be more than happy to look at their profiles, just have an initial conversation.
Awesome.
You know, again, I do try in these sessions. Of course, I work for Manchester Business School, so I will say some good stuff, but I do try to give objective advice, and I certainly ever have the opinion the Manchester MBA is the right one for everyone. That's not the type of person I am. So happy to give, you know, just general objective advice as well.
That's why I picked you. That was fantastic. Thank you so much, Chris, for your time. Thanks to everyone in the audience for staying with us until the end. And we all stay in contact, right?
Thank you, Thomas. And thank you, everyone, for attending as well. It was a pleasure.
Okay, I close the meeting now. Take care.
Thank you.